think that's inherently what we both want, because that, you know, deep down from, you know, both extremes, the MGTOW and maybe the girl power, I think we still inherently have those very traditional roles. We just have these shells because I think both these shells come from fear. We're both scared. We're both scared of each other, right? We've forgotten how to communicate. That freaks us out. We've forgotten how to trust. That freaks us out too. So we've decided to protect ourselves, fill the hole with these extremes, and it sells. And when it comes to finding Mr. Right, what is it that the female has to do that you believe is most important?
Yeah, that's a complicated question, and only because there's so many layers to the modern American woman that I see these days. You know, I've been living outside of the U.S. For the last coming up on 3 years now. So the struggles that I had with I guess finding Mrs. Right, if that makes sense, while I was in the States, I really was able to see the delta of you know, how women are in other parts of the world, in Southeast Asia, for example, and Eastern Europe, where I am now. But I think, you know, first and foremost, I would say most guys would say femininity, or they're looking for a feminine woman. And from what I saw in the United States through my dating adventures is, you know, there seems to be a strong conditioning of women, let's say my age and younger, that, you know, the women's empowerment, strong women, girl boss. And in some respects, those things are good, and we should all be treated equal in some respects. But in others, I think it's really separated the sexes, both men, you know, on the men's side, kind of going their own way, so to speak, and then women, you know, saying, well, I need to be the one in charge. I need to be independent. And you get that conditioning through the school system, the music, Hollywood, and things like that. So only recently am I starting to see that turn a little bit towards, I guess, what you would call traditional roles, where, you know, the man is the leader, and then the woman is kind of, you know, the first mate, so to speak. I'd say, you know, femininity, but also a healthy respect for traditionalism is what I would see working, so that both the man and the woman know their roles, so to speak, and are able to connect and then grow a family. But, you know, with the statistics in terms of divorce, I come from a divorce family. My parents divorced when I was 4 years old, raised by a single mom. So even as women are looking for Mr. Right and you know, trying to find that in their lives, I think the men, for a lot of them, for the most part, are equally as in the dark as the women are, because, you know, divorce, single parent homes, things like that. So it's a complicated subject to address, and I'm glad that we're doing it here. But there are many layers from what I can see as the reason why the sexes are so divided compared to, let's say, our grandparents, you know, 50, 60 years ago. So
Absolutely. I am curious about what your perspective is on what you feel is femininity. And the reason I say this is because I think everyone has a very different perspective on it. I think each male has a very different perspective on how they define what is feminine, what is feminism, and what is femininity, as far as even women have a very different perspective on what that even means. And for me, what it means to be a feminine woman is however she decides to like define herself as. So I might have a very different idea of what something is feminine to me versus what is feminine to some other woman, which might inevitably make it very different for either me or another female to find Mr. Right. Yes, I do acknowledge that there has been a interesting divide in how, like, both genders have evolved over this this I would say is, I don't know, this wave of social media and how we've currently defined what it means to be a girl boss and things like that. But yeah, I want to see what your thoughts are on what femininity even means for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, it almost goes to the spiritual realm in that, you know, both men and women have also masculine and feminine aspects of who they are. And so what I see is the programming and conditioning where masculine men are almost shunned and disparaged because they want to be masculine. There's a term, you know, toxic masculinity that's become popular in the media, you know, the last decade or so, where masculine men aren't able, let's say in the workplace, to take that leading role and show their masculinity because, you know, it's looked down upon. And at the same time, through the social engineering, the women have been empowered and being told, well, you have to be leaders, you have to be independent, you have to go into you know, management positions and you know, do this on your own and girl power. So I think there's good things to take from each of those, but then there's also the downside, which leaves us, as far as I'm concerned, men and women are more separated than ever from, you know, from each other and from their masculine aspects and the femininity and feminine side for women because of this engineering and this new world that we live in. So for me, femininity, it's a kind of a motherly love. It's more of a right brain kind of creativity, creative, loving, you know, aspect of women that we find. But more and more through the conditioning, I see that being lost and replaced with the girl power, the girl boss mentality. And you know, I would like to see a return to traditionalism, but I don't know how possible that is in this day and age. I think we have a lot of hurdles to get through just with the society that we live in, financially, economically, spiritually. There's a lot of hurdles that we're gonna have to go through and address before we can get to a place where, you know, we can truly be masculine men in the world and meet that with the feminine side of the women after they've kind of gone through that and have a place to be feminine. It's hard, I think, for women right now, because when you think of, well, the stay-at-home mom or the housewife like we had maybe in the 40s and 50s, that's kind of been thrown out the door. And now I think women are taught that they need to, you know, have degrees, go out, find a good job, you know, climb the corporate ladder. And so it kind of breaks apart that traditionalism in what we have now. So I don't know how we get back to that or if we even can, but I do have still a positive outlook on life that, you know, if we look inside of ourselves and figure out who we want to be in this world, that, you know, if Tawny, you're out there looking for Mr. Right, and through these conversations and through your, you know, journey, that you decide, okay, well, this is who I am, I'm happy with who I am. Now, you know, how do I go about finding my equal, or I shouldn't say equal, but should find my man and my masculine man that will take care of me. And so there's a lot of gray area there, you know, based off of, you know, what we've talked about in terms of, you know, you're a nurse right now, you're studying to be a surgeon. You know, I would say that as an individual, that's a great goal and a great accomplishment, you know, as you're going through life. But when you look at it through the lens of a man and a woman together, what is it going to take to not only find Mr. Right, but then go through the challenges of building a family, a marriage, kids, things like that. Like, to me, that's as much part of being feminine as it is being masculine. The family aspect and having children and raising children through all the ups and downs and you know, trials that life will throw at you. So you know, I want to at least have a positive outlook that we'll all return to, you know, who we really are spiritually, and be able to find that with themselves, even with the chaos going on in the world today.
Oh, absolutely. It's tough. And I agree. It's going to be very difficult, especially for women, as we've been taught to, you know, find the inner entrepreneur inside us. I want to know so as we're discussing this, it makes me wonder, so what is it that Mr. Right finds a turnoff for women? Like, as we've been discussing, the overall role of femininity has been slightly diminished. So as we, I don't know, pick up a couple masculine things here and there, what would you define as something that is actually a huge turnoff?
If I were to say, well, you know, I want a woman that hasn't had a lot of sex partners, because I'm going to be a serious, you know, I want to have a long-term relationship, build a family, and be committed to one woman. You know, it'd be easy to say, well, if she's on these dating apps and she's had a lot of sex partners, like, that would be a turnoff, if that's what I was looking for. But at the same time, what am I bringing to the table? Have I had a lot of partners? Have I gone out and played the field and kind of been, you know, now I'm ready to settle down? But just simply, a lot of guys just want to have fun, just want to, you know, excuse my French, but like pump and dump and just date and be on the dating apps and kind of just go through many women. And so I think with men, to look at and say, well, what turns me off? What in a woman turns me off? I think at the same time, in a duality standpoint, we have to look, well, what is the guy doing? Is he very serious about finding Mrs. Right? Or is he just going through and kind of riding the carousel himself, and not really serious about like a long-term relationship or a marriage or building a family? So, you know, a lot of times it's easy for men, especially on let's say YouTube, for example. There's a good deal of men who subscribe to a philosophy called MGTOW, or men going their own way. And I was a MGTOW, or men going their own way, in my own way, for a few years. And I think starting back maybe 2015, 2016, watching videos on YouTube and learning about female nature. They say taking the red pill, learning about female nature, things that weren't taught to me growing up as a kid. I mean, I was already in my early to mid 30s, and I still didn't have a good grasp of female nature, you know, as it stands today. So I see that they would get mad if you called it a movement, but I say that philosophy of go your own way, be independent, be a lone wolf, that's really indoctrinated a lot of men to not really be serious about family and having kids and just kind of play the field, you know, have fun. So there's duality in all of this, but you know, we got to look at just the splitting of the sexes, and you know, I see a lot of divide and conquer going on, especially in the United States. And what I mean by that is separating people from the color of their skin, their level of education, economically, and of course, you know, man versus woman, and the dichotomy that's kind of split down the middle and separated us. And so my positive outlook would be that we can get past those voices in the media and in Hollywood and in other places, universities, that tell us that we need to be separated and go your own way. As much as I was prescribed to that philosophy and took some good pieces from it that helped me along my journey, I think ultimately a philosophy like men going their own way, while it can help men on their journey, it should be a pit stop and not the final destination. Take what you want, leave the rest, but continue to work on yourself. And ultimately, I mean, if you look at the birth rates in the United States, they're going down under replacement levels, as they are in most of the Western world. And yet other parts of the world, India, China, other parts are reproducing like crazy. So, you almost have to take a macro look at it and say, well, why is that? Why are, let's say, Americans having less kids these days? Is it financial reasons, or is it because of the social engineering that's taken place that separated us? And now a lot of women are waiting until they're in their 30s or approaching 40 to start thinking about, oh, okay, now I want to have kids. Now I want to look for Mr. Right. And in terms of turnoffs, like, I want, me being 43 years old, like, I want someone that's much younger than me and that hasn't had that many sex partners, and that has a feminine aspect to them. That's what I look for in a woman. So
I kind of want to explore this men going their own way. And I say this because men going their own way, I mean, Mr. Right's got to be somewhere in that pack, probably. It makes me wonder if I want to go over the topic of commitment in the eyes of Mr. Right, and why perhaps, what involves the turnoff with the kind of women that has evolved, I guess, now. So, for instance, I like that we're going over through the discussion of the multiple partners and things like that. And I can see how that can be a turnoff for both parties. So I wanted to see what your thoughts were about commitment and what it means for Mrs. Right. I had to think about that. Mrs. Right too, future Mrs. Right.
Yeah.
Because it is true. I think the way we date these days, it's like everyone's swiping, and it's such an instant gratification to find a potential partner, to only find out for either woman or the man that it isn't real, or it might be real, or you have to read about the signs. Tell me more about what is the turn on and turn off of that whole process.
Equally, like you said, we're swiping, we're on these dating apps. A woman, I mean, I've seen posts on Reddit where, a good looking guy and a good looking girl, set up fake profiles and then go on Tinder in a major metropolitan city. And the guy will get maybe 60 or maybe 100 matches, where the woman, if she just swipes right on everyone, will get, upwards of 1,000 or more, like multiple hundreds of men, like almost like a fast food or ordering food online, a whole menu of different men that are just ready to take her out, ready to, use their game at whatever level to take them to bed, and not being very serious about relationships on either side. So, for women, it's not like you're going to see that one or two guys and hopefully, fall in love and get married and have beautiful babies. It's probably almost even daunting if that is one of the things that is true in your heart that you want to do, and you just have so many options, and your mind just kind of going crazy thinking, okay, well, you're almost overloaded with options at this point. So I can see that being kind of a downside for women that are going that route. I think if they're really committed to wanting a single man, or like one man, and having a family and such, I'm sure every woman has tried that dating app at one time or another. But I'm sure you can agree, you quickly realize that you get kind of bored of it. It's like a musical chairs playing, and everyone gets up and goes to a different chair and kind of does that for a little while, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, and then, okay, let's get back on the Tinder. Let's set up my profile again. And so it's like this revolving door where it really leaves, I think, men unhappy or maybe just not satisfied truly, and it leaves women unhappy too, and just thinking, pulling their hair out, like, where are all the good men at? And so this abundance of options for both men and women really plays into that that divide and conquer, and you know, that separation of the sexes. And so, you know, they say, well, go to church, or, you know, maybe like at school, or maybe it, you know, kind of, I think everyone universally says not to look for love in the workplace. But I mean, if you look at it traditionally, like that's where some relationships started, just because you're, you know, forced to be working together for hours and hours every week. And so you kind of just, you know, things just naturally happen that way. It's much different these days. And sadly, it's leaving us kind of wanting more, and the illusion that we can find, you know, what we truly want in this world through these dating apps and through this new way of dating. But I think it's just leaving us more unhappy than ever, frankly.
It kind of reminds me of, as we find that swiping is just so instant. We have the gratification of finding and selecting and shopping and things like that, and you realize, wow, I've had way too much junk food. Well, and what I mean to say that is I think, I mean, I agree that there's been a divide in how we define, you know, the traditional role of the female and the traditional role of the male. There's been a change there, but I also feel that there's been a huge culture shift to the dating experience, because it's no longer, you know, I like you had mentioned, you know, I found this guy at work, or I met this friend through a friend. It's become this almost like, if you have an empty hole that you want to fill, you can fill it because it's right on the tip of your fingers, without realizing that each individual, whether male or female, that you're even ready for maybe a commitment, that those needs are not going to be met in the right way. So it's just an interesting, it is a very interesting way we've come about the idea of a commitment. It almost makes it feel as though commitment, and I'm just saying this because it's something that I see, but it I guess for maybe the male and the female, again, it varies for every person, that the need for commitment is not necessary anymore. I say that very lately. I just know that sometimes people think that, oh, do I really need to commit to this one person because there are thousands of people on this app? It makes me wonder more about, for instance, how the MGTOWs think about that. And again, I kind of want to tie that into, like, what makes them like how are they attracted to the current and modern woman today? Are they still looking for the kind of female that wants to stay at home and stay at home and be there for them after work? Or how do they filter out that in the world, the modern dating world, I would say?
Yeah. Well, you hit on a couple good points. One is you have to be developed enough in your own way, just as a single, you know, individual, man or woman. You have to be happy with who you are, and not let vices or anything kind of keep you down. You have to be on a path. Both men and women have to be on a path of being the best that they can be in mind, body, and spirit. And I feel like a lot of men and women seek that in someone else to fill the void in them, because they are less than their potential, and you know, kind of living life just in the moment, so to speak, but also, you know, not really working and developing on themselves. Like that whole commitment conversation is possible when both the woman is secure in who she is, she's confident, she's, you know, we go back to that word feminine, but you know, what does that really mean? She's ready to be the yin to that man's yang, or, you know, they're complementary. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I believe in a higher power, spiritual. Yeah, it's man and woman. We fit together, you know, like that's the way we're made. So both parts have to be whole, and both parts have to be complementary to each other to even begin that kind of commitment and serious relationship conversation. Going back to MGTOW, you know, it's interesting. You know, I guarantee you, Tawny, if you put MGTOW in the description of this video, you will get so many people coming in and commenting and probably mostly leaving negative comments. So it's interesting.
I don't know what MGTOW is, so I'm kind of like,
Just go easy on her, guys. She doesn't know. You know, like I said, I pulled a lot of good, more so personal development and just things about female nature and about the current like court systems and single moms and things like that. And I pulled a lot of that from my time producing content. Honestly, for me, the videos were more about healing myself and healing through trauma from an earlier age. And I think we all have that trauma. And so I think what MGTOW, what it stands for, what it's become now in 2020 on YouTube, which is probably the main base hub of MGTOW and MGTOW content, it's become very radicalized in my view, where they're staunchly against women. A lot of them, if you were to interview them, they would say, okay, there's 3 pillars. Don't have kids with a woman, don't cohabitate with women, and don't marry women. And it's like, if those are your 3 kind of founding principles of your philosophy, then no wonder men and women are so separated these days. If more women or more men are finding this philosophy online and subscribing to it, and then actually living that philosophy, like women, whether you have low, what they would say, notch count, you haven't slept around, you come from a good family, stable home, man, your mother and father are still together, have a somewhat strong marriage, you had a strong father figure in your life. I'm speaking as a woman. You could have all those things checked off on, as far as what you're going to bring to the table. But if you run into a MGTOW guy, like it won't matter because he's already kind of subscribed to this philosophy. And not to say that there aren't good reasons for that. If you look at the divorce statistics in the United States, for example, I mean, heck, we got Brad Pitt, we got athletes, multi-millionaire athletes, Dr. Dre, a billionaire, still getting divorced. When you see that every day in the separation, like you can build yourself up as a man and make money and have all this power in the world and still get divorced and still, send, let's say in the case of Jeff Bezos, still pay out billions of dollars in a divorce situation, then, there's a lot of things pushing men to kind of go MGTOW and kind of live that philosophy. If you're a man in the United States, there's not really much upside to having a family or looking for a serious relationship. We talked about divorce, and this goes for men and women as well, but, getting cheated on, having different partners behind your back, things like that. And then, okay, let's say, you think you find this woman, you settle down, you maybe get married, and then she gets bored or she starts, swiping or doing stuff, or you have kids and maybe it's good for a while, but because we're so influenced by the media and by this like dopamine addiction, like maybe she gets bored and she doesn't want that anymore. So she talks to a few lawyers and divorce attorneys and said, well, you guys have built up a nice little nest egg. If you divorce him, you can get half of all that. Even though you may not have come to the table with equal amounts, you can still take from the man. And I've heard countless stories and guys reaching out to me and telling me, like, yeah, man, I got divorced. She got custody of the kids. She took half of my wealth or more. I'm on the hook to pay child support, pay alimony. So really, from a man's perspective, you can kind of see why, that MGTOW philosophy has been growing. And I don't really, see it not continue to grow because there's just not a lot of benefits as a man to to get into that long-term serious relationship. So maybe Tawny, like that's going to be a big roadblock for this topic of finding Mr. Right. Is Mr. Right's kind of smartened up a bit, and he's kind of realized, like, well, let's do a cost benefit analysis. You know, yeah, I can have a woman, I can have feel like I'm doing my part in terms of my biological needs, reproduction needs. But then you look at the other side and, okay, what if I do have kids? What if I do get divorced? What if I'm on the hook and she takes everything? A lot of times guys will struggle to pay that child support. They'll get behind. They'll get their driver's license taken. Like, there's all kinds of just really diabolical laws set in place in the United States that, you can kind of see why that philosophy is taken off, to just don't even live with them. Like, certain states, you move in with a woman and you're on the hook, like you're considered married, even though you haven't, formally gotten married, just because you live with them for a certain amount of time, you could be liable for having to pay that woman. So just weird, like I said, diabolical things that have been passed that really doesn't put a lot of benefit as a man to settle down and find that woman. And then the flip side of women, like, the girl power and empowerment, and you see it on the media, and it's, I don't know, I feel like if you were to go into your 30s and approach 40s, and even after your 40s, and not have kids, and whether you're still married or not, like, the aspect of not having kids leaves a lot of women, we say crazy cat ladies, drinking box wine. Like, there's a couple funny memes that go along with that kind of mirror the truth in a lot of ways. And so, like, it's a lose-lose for both parties. So
are you saying that Mr. Right doesn't exist? Because if Mr. Right anticipates divorce, then does Mr. Right even exist?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I'll use myself the example. I still want to have a family. I still want to raise a strong family, and in order to do that, I know I have to be with one woman and stick together to raise the next generation of good people, is the way I see it. And so I've had to leave the United States and look for that elsewhere, and continue to search for that. But I feel like I'm much closer to finding that in other countries that haven't been as heavily indoctrinated with what I call the feminist mind virus. Like, it's this kind of, you don't need men, you're fine on your own, independent woman, all the single ladies, throw your hands in the air kind of thing. And so I've had to travel other parts of the world to continue to look for that. But for guys in the United States, it's tough. I get it. Like, I get the reasons why you would want to not get serious, not be Mr. You can be Mr. Right for yourself, but to commit to one woman, there's not a lot of upside to doing that. But I think there is hope in the United States for both men and women. If you can acknowledge what's going on, if you could really spend time understanding the social conditioning that's taken place, and then just have that good communication and start to grow together. But you have to identify that, society, at least in the United States, doesn't want strong families, and there's a very good reason for that, because they're harder to control. And if both a man and a woman can come to terms with that, understand the propaganda that they see in the mainstream media, understand the agenda, then I think that they can both rally together in opposition to it. And I see very small hints of that happening, or beginning to happen more. But if you're just going into it not knowing this agenda, just kind of saying, okay, I'm going to get on the apps, I'm going to, I see this a lot, serious relationships only, like on a woman's profile, or I never see that on a men's profile. So maybe you do. I don't know.
Oh, no, I actually, I don't use that stuff very often.
Okay.
I kind of stay over it, but I understand the need for it. But it's it's like, I don't know, I'm a choose, you know, when you go shopping and you like look at all the clothes, you get overwhelmed. It's like, I just get overwhelmed. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I think
Well,
like it's interesting because these extremes, I feel they feed each other, because it makes me wonder, okay, why are women even saying, I don't need men, which is biologically hard, I think.
yeah.
I think we do need each other, and I think having sincere companionship with a man, or having sincere companionship with a woman, is the most beautiful thing ever. And I think at our core, we've nearly almost forgotten it. And so we've developed these extremes to fill in the void. So for girl power, when we find discord with a man, and you know, maybe we've met with as we defined at MGTOW, and maybe she wasn't a girl power girl, but have met more maybe MGTOW conditioned men, and now we feel maybe we need to do the girl power, and now you have more women going towards this I don't need men mentality, because of the other extreme where men continue to I don't want to say all men do this, but I do see it. There are men out there disrespecting women. There are men crossing their boundaries. There are men out there who don't respect what we define is feminine. And it makes us respond in a very specific way. So that's kind of how I see things going. And can you blame women for that? Can you blame women for you know, maybe we don't want to go too traditional, because can we depend on a man now these days? Can we do that?
You know, it's a complicated issue. So in terms of Mr. Right, Tawny, you know, what in terms of seeking Mr. Right from a female perspective, I mean, what are your sources to, if you're not going on the dating apps, which I agree with, you shouldn't if you're looking for, because they're swiping and everyone's swiping, and it's creating this perpetuating loop of, you know, division and maybe disrespect, and seeing disrespect on both ends. So, you know, I'll just kind of throw it back at you, but like, maybe what are some of the places that you would find at school, just out at the club? I'm like, where are you going?
I mean, I'll agree. I use the apps. I have used them in the past. Do I enjoy it? No, I don't. I do find a moderate need, I feel, because I also feel that women like myself, we've gotten just super busy. It's hard to just go out and then like run into Mr. Right. It's very challenging. And you know, I guess for me personally, I don't like hyper focus on it, just because I have all these things going on for myself, which can of course, you know, lead to, you know, a delay in what I might say, the, you know, creating the family and everything like that. But I think for my personal viewpoint, I believe in a world of abundance, and I know that Mr. Right is out there, and that like the universe will bring that together, and I don't have to like force it, which I feel apps can kind of insinuate this mindset of you can force it to happen right now if you just swipe enough and you interview enough and you know, create these checklists, and you'll find if you swipe. It's a great selling point for what these you know, apps and our dating culture has created. Everyone's going to be super different, but I would say my sources, nothing. But but I inherently believe that like being able to grow as a well-rounded woman in itself, doing that alone will attract the right guy. Same with a man. Like when a man decides that he does want to settle and he does want to commit and is ready, that he will find Mrs. Right. And if both parties truly understand what it means to be exactly who you are, and to communicate well, and to support one another well, divorce shouldn't really be. I mean, I also believe in statistics and numbers, so I don't want to discredit that isn't happening. But like I'm the kind of female that would like to provide with the family unit, not necessarily like 100 hours a week, but I don't see maybe I come from a girl power sort of movement as well, but not in a sense where I need to boss someone. I think that for me, femininity and girl power is having the freedom to define what I like and what I like to provide for a man. And if that is emotional support and a little financial support, like, that would be awesome. So, and it's kind of cool. I don't know, kind of cool. So yeah, I would say, so my source is like nothing. I fully believe in the personal development of the mind, body, and spirit. And I think those kinds of people will find their respective Mr. and Mrs. Right.
I have a few theories. One of them is what I call the Speed theory. And Speed was a movie starring Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves back in the 90s. And at the beginning of the movie, they both get on this bus, and the villain, Dennis Hopper's, rigged this bus so that it has to go 80 miles an hour. And if it goes under 80 miles an hour, then the whole bus blows up. And so somehow Keanu Reeves gets on this bus, and Sandra Bullock was just happened to be riding the bus. And then through the course of the movie, them working together under this really difficult situation, they end up at the end of the movie driving into some train track. The bus blows up, but everyone's saved. And then they fall in love at the end. Of course, Hollywood ending. I think you kind of have to go through some shit with that woman and that man. They have to kind of get together and go through like a terrorist attack or something. Like, there has to be some things that try the relationship and that you see that person's true colors. If you're just going out, okay, maybe at the mall, some guy gets your number, says, let's go out, have a drink, or meet for coffee, through that kind of current dating situation that's not on a dating app, but just let's say it's happened organically. I see you, Tawny, at the Starbucks. I say, hey, what's up? I'm Kris, let me get your number. We go out, we're going to be putting on the best faces, and those may be real, but they may be facade. And we're going to kind of keep doing that through the dating course until something happens. And then it's like, oh, well, I got a bunch of options, so I won't call her back, or I'll just kind of let that fish go, so to speak. So, I guess point being is you have to go through some stuff to be able to see what that person's really all about. And in terms of Mr. Right, like, you have to really be tested in a relationship to know if that's even Mr. Right, or is he just putting a facade and just wanting this kind of superficial relationship. Because if you haven't gone through those things, like having a long-term relationship or even a family, that shouldn't be when you decide to go through some stuff, like you should be tested well before that. And it's too easy not to be tested, like we go through some stuff on that situation. It's too easy to just say, whatever, screw that guy, Kris. I'm going to go out with Tom over here or whatever. So, I think that's part of it.
Point in the midst of how quickly we can find a match, I think it's also affected the way we date, including how fast we think we know someone. Like, I don't know. I think it's not uncommon that I hear of a girlfriend falling in love in a matter of 3 weeks. Which that's not uncommon. And then she goes crazy because she creates expectations that aren't real because she fell in love in 3 weeks. And so can you expect a guy to do all these things? No, you just met the guy 3 weeks. But that's how fast it happens. You swipe, you match, you get to know someone, and boom, in like 2 months you're in a committed relationship where no one really knew each other. And so you're right, in the matter of that amount of time, has enough trial happened? Absolutely not. I can't even make a best friend in that amount of time.
Right.
So it's just I like, it's a combination of, yes, the extremes that have been developed, the instant gratification, and this kind of discord of how like we're actually supposed to create a normal relationship and not just a romantic one. But like, if you consider how fast things are happening, it's created this almost predisposition of trust. You know, can you really call this person your significant other, and you just met them? You know, like it's very variable. So I don't know. What do you think about the fast speed? It's really fast. I don't know. I struggle finding to relate. Like when I hear these stories and I'm like, but it's only been 2 weeks. How did that happen? Or you know, I might even go as far as it's only been 3 months. Do you really know everyone? You know, do you know that person to that fullest extent in only 3 to 4 months? Whereas you find new things about your best friend in over 3 years. You don't know that. So there's a lot that contributes to those extremes for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think what you focus on expands. And so it's kind of another theory, but like if Tawny was like really truly serious about finding Mr. Right because your biological clock's ticking, you know you want a family, you have a lot to bring to the table, you've worked on yourself in that mind, body, and spirit. You can't just use the law of attraction and just kind of hoping and wishing. You really have to take action on that and kind of make it your main focus. If you are okay with, okay, well, I want to find Mr. Right, but I'm going to do these things and I have these goals and professional career, you know, like aspiring for more because I want to provide down the road. That's going to take your focus away from finding Mr. Right. And if you go through those trials and not find him, you're always going to have this other thing to fall back on. And so I think that's what's just confusing in this climate, is that society and the media tells you have to do the girl power thing and fill the kind of masculine role in society. But at the same time, your biology is telling you, like, you know, we're here to make kids and reproduce, and you know that clock is ticking. So where is Mr. Right? Someone I can trust, get to know that's going to be a stand-up guy when I need him. Like really understand who that person is to the core. It's confusing, and I can see why. You know, this conversation hopefully will help those out there. We just got to admit it's hard. And if you're too independent, if you have too much freedom, too much ability to just walk away at any time, then for both sides, it's not going to equal, I think, what a lot of us want deep down, which is that caring, compassionate person that we can trust on, we can depend on. That you know, when we're old people, they're going to be there to we're going to take care of each other. So I think it's still possible, but you know what you're focused on. If you're focused on career and coming up in kind of a corporate ladder or getting more degrees, then that's going to be your focus, and then everything else should be secondary to that. But I think if you really or you truly want a family situation where you're stay at home, maybe you run like some small business out of your home while you're homeschooling the kids or taking care of the kids, like if that's your focus, then that should be your focus. And so I think right now it sounds like there's like two things you want to focus on, and then you may accomplish one with your career endeavors, but I think the other one will always struggle if you continue kind of to balance two things instead of just the one.
So for women out there who are wanting to pursue higher education, is that particularly a turnoff for men?
I mean, if you ask me, I don't care. I don't care about degrees. I don't care about corporate ladder or like, I mean, I've worked for like women CEOs. The last kind of day job that I had was I worked for a bull dyke lesbian, and she was super cool, but like just the back and forth and indecisiveness, like not that I was trying to date her, but just that whole corporate environment is very, what I call soy. There's a lot of soy, a lot of estrogen in these corporate workplaces these days because the masculinity's been sucked out of it, and guys have gotten tired and just say, you know what, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go do things on my own. I may not make as much money, but there's enough opportunities out there for me to go it alone outside the corporate environment. But in terms of like higher education, career, things like that, I don't care. I wouldn't say it's a turn off, but it definitely, for what I look for, makes me kind of shy away and just think of it as more of like a fun fling than actual like, okay, well, she's obviously focused on her career and has her main focus. So what am I going to provide? And then at the end of the day, she knows that she can get validation and have a foundation career-wise. So what would I ever bring to the table? It used to be that men and women were bonded together because the man was the provider financially. And it used to be he could make enough money to support not only his wife, but the kids that they have in a home, with the woman staying at home. But those days are gone. Not that they're not still possible, but I mean, that's kind of how I look at it is, what does she need me for in a serious relationship? I'll just end up getting divorced, and then she'll take what little I do have. So not to be too.
It almost sounds like it's the woman's job to make a man feel masculine. Almost sounds as if so.
I mean, I wouldn't say that. It just, the roles need to be like, you need to each know your role. Like honestly, like I feel more masculine when I know that I'm taking care of my woman, where she doesn't have to feel like she needs to go out and have a career and all that. I mean, I say that I would feel that masculine role because I don't have that now, but as I'm going through the dating, or I guess looking for that mother of my children, I think it fills men with a sense of purpose in terms of family and settling down, not just your everyday guy that you'll find on Tinder or, but for a more serious relationship, he should feel like a sense of he's providing for his family. That makes a man feel good. If a woman is going to come in and say, well, honey, I'm going to, meet you halfway and try to provide for us too, and go out into the corporate world, and try to go through those obstacles so that we can provide, then you're both out of the family, like not that I feel less masculine, but it's just, there's no bonding that takes place there because either side can just flip it and go off on their own at any time. There has to be some dependence, I think, dependence on the man, that he's the provider, he's bringing, the financial aspect to the table, so that the woman can feel like, I guess, more bonded to him. But if that's not there, then, if you're making your own money, I'm making my own money, what's really keeping us together? Then it's just more of like a physical thing.
So if a man, a man who does want to provide, how does that kind of man differentiate a genuine woman versus how they might say a gold digger or something? How do you differentiate someone who's genuine, who likes you for you, or just sees you as her provider and that's it? Like, how does a man differentiate then?
Yeah, I mean, well, you look at it, like going back to the basics, what kind of family does she come from? How involved, like maybe like in a religious sense, was she raised? You really got to vet these things out. I think that's why some parts of MGTOW come in handy, because they talk about those things if you are uninitiated to really what to look for. But a bunch of the other parts kind of like put all that to the wayside. So how do you know? I mean, you don't. But if she's someone that's very materialistic, Gucci purses and Louis Vuitton and shoes and all of these things, like for me, like I used to be a very materialistic person. Like I was always like dressing tight, had the shoes, had had the whole look, the big car, the big rims, all this. And I think I just evolved to the point where this material stuff is fleeting. It's what you stand for, who you are as an individual, like spiritually for me, and what you are doing to make this world a better place. Like that became more important to me than just the like frivolous kind of material things that come and go. So you have to be a little bit tuned to that in her. Is she more wholesome and spiritual and earthy and you know, not in a new age sense or like doing yoga or anything like that, but you know, like you gotta have your method of filtering like very strong to be able to sense that. And so there's a lot of relationship these days. I mean, that's why these sites like Seeking Arrangements and, you know, I don't know, there's probably sugarbaby.com or something like that. Like, I don't know which ones they are, but a lot of younger women are perfectly happy getting with the kind of older provider type, but there's definite like contract involved in terms of like financial, you know, benefits for the woman. And, you know, I'm not saying that's good. It's just the reality that we live in today. So, you know, going back to, you know, how to find Mr. Right, I say that understanding the current social engineering that we've all been put through, and then understanding that if I still want to take on the challenge of building a family, strong family, there has to be some bonding that goes on there. And that's traditionally why, you know, women who lost their virginity to that guy in high school, who ended up being the husband, and they had some kids and got married, those relationships tended to stay together a lot longer than the woman who's had 5, 10, 20 different partners and then deciding to settle down. Like, you can run the statistics, but after the second or third partner, that chance of divorce is really high. On the flip side, finding Mr. Right as a woman, I think you really have to look and try to take on what you bring to the table, not in a economic or like a corporate sense or corporate ladder or even a higher education ladder, but more so like, how can we both agree that the world is messed up, we're divided more than ever, but we're still going to be committed to make it work, and then go through enough things. I don't know if it's traveling. I'm still trying to figure it out. Maybe get on a bus that's going to blow up. I don't know. But, you know, something that's going to bond you guys together, and then learn who that person is truly, and then decide, okay, let's, you know, get together in union, have kids. You know, it'd be cool if women didn't even, you know, wanted to get married and have kids and not even involve the state. Like, you know, I think it's just weird that we have to go to Big Daddy government to even get that marriage license.
So, in the light of everything going on, and just a man's perspective on a woman, whether it is like career or physical beauty and all these things, how does she differentiate herself for you? Like, how does she become more attractive, more appealing if all she has, you know, all you have to see first is beauty, and maybe she does want the provider? What else are you looking for?
Yeah, the little things, the sweet notes, the you know, we say like, oh, cooking and cleaning, but no, like cooking meals, like little gifts, or just knowing that she's thinking about me, or if I had a hard day, you know, sending me a message. The provider thing is interesting because I may have a different take on it. Like, okay, I'm gonna pay everything. Okay, cool, but I'm gonna be up in your phone. Like, I better know the password to your phone. I'm gonna be in your Instagram DMs. I'm gonna be in your WhatsApp. You know, like, I'll do my part and take care of you, where you don't have to feel like you need to go out earn money. Like, I'll bring it in, but I also have some rules that she needs to follow too. Like, you know, just in terms of monogamy and such. So, like, that's my ideals perspective to counter this whole media, you know, divide and conquer thing, and so many options. because as a beautiful woman, you're going to get hit up, as you should. And there should be guys every day trying to holler at you, you know, which is fine. That's what I get for wanting a beautiful woman. But if I'm going to be paying for everything, like, I'm going to be in your DM, like, you're not going to have any other kind of beta orbiters, you know. Maybe you'll have the beta orbiters, but you're not going to be talking to any of them. And as soon as I find, like, then that's it, like, no more provider. So that's at the beginning stages. The latter stages, I mean, eventually you grow together, you learn each other, and you say, okay, well, you know, let's take this to a more serious level. But just at the beginning, like, I got some rules too, you know, and my word is the law. And if it's not, then okay, you can go your own way, and I'll continue doing my thing.
It's interesting. We seem to have forgotten what monogamy even is like. I think. What are your thoughts on women and monogamy?
It's changing, because, like, Rollo would say, you got to be spinning plates. And it's like, I don't know if Rollo being married in a marriage for, I don't know, however many years, 20 years or whatever, like, is Rollo still spinning plates? Like, so there's that kind of theory of it. And just with these damn devices, man, like, it's too easy.
Yeah, I don't like them either. I think it's distracting. It's becoming a level of distraction. I feel like I have ADD already.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting thing, because we've gotten to a point where we have to like describe and define, this is what monogamy means, because for some it's almost forgotten. Like, I can see how it can be. I can see how trust is really a challenging thing these days, because it's so easy to go one way or the other, especially with these apps, especially with social media, and the accessibility of everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a guy and you're trying to be monogamous and you're not in her DMs and kind of having a full court press as far as that stuff, then what's the point? I mean, and it's not even because of fault of the woman necessarily. It just, with so much attraction and so many avenues of getting that attention, how could you not, your female brain, like, not that it's a knock on you, but I mean, it can't handle that stimulus overload, that dopamine overload. So, you know, you may feel like obligated to kind of message someone else, and, oh, my boyfriend won't know about it, and that kind of thing. So it comes down to trust and seeing the character of the person. And that should be like a filtering method as well for the guy's perspective. But, you know, if it's okay, we're going to do this monogamous thing, I'm going to take on the masculine role and provide, like, there's going to be some rules, because I'm not dumb. Like, I know how Instagram works. I know how WhatsApp works, you know, like,
I see this in profile interaction. It's true.
Yeah.
It actually makes me sad, because I do see it happening, and I do on the female side, that the innocent interaction, I'll call it, it's not innocent because it's still an interaction, and it does make me sad to see how a little attention can stroke her ego or something, and pursue and persist, which isn't fair to a monogamous relationship at all. So I would 100% disagree with those kinds of interactions. Even though they may seem innocent, it's still a shot of some hormones there, here and there, and it's not right. So I don't like how accessible and easy that is. If I were to, like, kind of boil it down, I'd say, you know, is her Instagram at least private? Like, you know, things like, just small things like that. You know, does she keep her life private? What kind of photos is she posting? Is she advertising herself? Is she making it easy for men to find her? You know, those little things are going to be indicative of, you know, how does she interact when you're not around? I really feel that taking more time to get to know someone, I think everyone wants to marry their best friend, which is why you see the high school sweethearts still. I actually know most of my like friends from high school who married their high school sweetheart are still together in very healthy relationships because they took the time to get to know each other. They didn't swipe real quick and got into something too soon. They were best friends first. And that's another very, important thing to have in a marriage. You're marrying your best friend. I think that's inherently what we both want, because that, deep down from, both extremes, the MGTOW and maybe the girl power, I think we still inherently have those very traditional roles. We just have these shells because I think both these shells come from fear. We're both scared. We're both scared of each other, right? We've forgotten how to communicate. That freaks us out. We've forgotten how to trust. That freaks us out too. So we've decided to protect ourselves, fill the hole with these extremes, and it sells. It sells really good because it makes us feel safe. So we're not going to want to become vulnerable to each other for these reasons. But you see those high school sweethearts who have not been conditioned to those social standards that we've created because
Right.
we've already surpassed it. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent way to wrap up the conversation. To acknowledge what it is that we're dealing with on both sides, and then overcome that and still decide to get to know each other. If I'm serious about a relationship, I don't mind waiting. If I think that woman has like some of the pieces that I'm looking for, then what's the rush? If we're going to be together, we've got the rest of our lives to go do our get our freak on.